Well, a lot of you have been asking for it, and I've finally decided to sit down and make it. Today we're going to go over all of the add-ons, weakauras, and all of my profiles that I use in World of Warcraft. And of course, everything you see here today will be available on the Discord. This video today will be a slightly different one. It will be fairly unedited, like not a lot of cuts. We're just going to go through it. I'm going to discuss what I use, why I use it, and if you have any questions or have missed anything at the end, feel free to let me know in the comments. Alright, we're going to start off with the add-ons. So the add-ons, I'm not going to go through absolutely all of them. I use all the things every now and then. It helps me track all the pets and the mounts. It usually brings up some information in the tooltip that you see in the bottom right by my details. For now, I don't particularly use it so much because all the things in the name, it gives so much information. Like it's very powerful at tracking. If you are one that likes like you're a completionist, you do all the achievements, you're the collector that collects all the mounts, the pets, like absolutely everything, like the toys, this is definitely for you. You should definitely consider all the things. I've kind of stopped using it. It was a bit much for me. Obviously, you can turn a lot of it off, or you can keep all of it on. For the collector, I would definitely recommend it. But for me personally, I have it off. But I use it every now and then. Auctionator is just a simple add-on I use for the auction. I don't really need to go into that. There are other more advanced auction add-ons such as TSM, Trade Skill Master. So if you are the type of person that likes making a lot of gold, you should definitely look at something like TSM. If you are more of like the basic, like me, you don't really do a lot with the auction, maybe Auctionator is probably the way to go, or just the default, to be honest. Next on the list is Bartender 4, and honestly the only reason I use this is because of the action bars. I'm trying to use as much default UI as possible to limit the amount of add-ons I use. Unfortunately, the default just doesn't work the way that I want it to. So basically, with all of my characters, I have the action bars shown while I'm learning the character and the spec and all of the keybinds and whatnot, but once I figured out everything and I know where everything is, I typically like to hide the action bars, and I only make them visible with like when you're hovering over them, basically. So they are hidden until you mouse over them and then they appear. Unfortunately, with the default UI, you can't do that, so I had to install Bartender 4. The next one on the list is better character panels, and this is basically just like the item level, the enchants, the gems, and everything that you see here in the character window itself. There are a few add-ons that do this. They present things a little differently, but this is the one I prefer to use. So yeah, in terms of raid add-ons, I use bigwigs. Along with that, with all of the dungeons, I use little wigs. So to those that didn't know, you've either got DBM or bigwigs. They both do exactly the same thing, just differently. So for the raid side of things, you use big wigs, and for the dungeons themselves, you use little wigs. For the damage meters you see down the bottom here, I use details. You can create multiple windows. This is the most appealing to me. It's pretty lightweight and it's very, very flexible. I typically like to display 3. I rotate between them. So sometimes I track interrupts and the healing. Sometimes I switch between them. You've got stuff like CC breaks, so you can see who's being naughty. You can track stuff like avoidable damage, so you can see who's standing in everything, and it's usually me. Along with that, you can also track stuff like explosive orbs on explosive weeks, so you can see who's actually been contributing and not just letting the healer do it all. And then of course, if you click on one of the panels, you get a breakdown of everything that happened during combat. So you've got all of the spells, how much damage it did, and then of course all of the mobs. It obviously goes into a lot more detail, but that's all I'm going to cover today. There are a few things on the list that I won't mention because I don't use them, and I've just been lazy and kept them on there, to be honest, like the Exodus raid tools. I think I installed it for the raid group. It didn't work. I found out like a month into raiding that I got the wrong one, so yeah, don't tell my raid team about that. Apparently I use something called friends groups. It says add-on managing your contacts list with groups. I did see this, but I've not actually done anything with it. I actually thought this was default, but apparently not. So if you want to organize your friends into groups, perhaps this is the way to do it. Next on the list is something that I have used since, oh man, I think it's like Wrath of the Lich King. It's been going for a long time. It's GTFO. You guys can probably guess what this is for, right? So basically, if you're taking damage and you're standing in stuff that you really shouldn't be, it will display an annoying sound that you obviously want to get rid of. So it makes you aware that you're standing in stuff and you're taking damage. So you just get out of it. That's pretty much all it is. And to me, like, I have ADHD and stuff, so I tend to tunnel a lot and I stand in a lot of stuff. I mean, you can see all the avoidable damage I take, right? It's quite a lot. Yeah, I think Little Wigs maybe does something like this as well as Big Wigs. But I think the one that helps me the most is GTFO, and it can be annoying to some people and irritating, but I mean, I see that as a good thing, because if it's going off and it annoys you, then it makes you get out quicker, right? Yeah, I don't know. I use it, it works for me, it might not work for you. Along with that, we have one of my favorites in Handy Notes. You have to get Handy Notes itself along with the expansion and then the niche little areas that you want to cover. So for example, we have dragon glyphs. So it won't show any on the map here because I've collected them all. But just for example, if you've never seen Handy Notes before, you've got little puzzles and boxes and rares and stuff along the mini map. It gives you a breakdown. So if I find one, for example, we've got Brundin the Dragon Bane. Did I pronounce that correctly? So it gives you like rares and pets and like mounts on the map with instructions of how to do them. So you can see that like this is known and completed to me, so that's absolutely fine. We've got bits and pieces like this lost obsidian cache. I think it's a cache, and I don't know, I haven't done this, but I guess, yeah, you get a toy from it and it gives you instructions. So you've got to collect a sour apple, then you've got to go and do that there, and so on and so forth. You get the point. So yeah, great add-on to have. I definitely recommend Handy Notes if you are not using it. Next on the list is Leatrix Plus, and I think I only use this for a few things. It's like auto-skipping cutscenes and queues for friends. It does like some automation stuff. You can block bits and pieces and change bits of the interface. I only use it for a couple of things. It's pretty powerful. I'm not going to go into it. These are just a couple of reasons why I use it. Again, it's like used to sell junk automatically when you open up a vendor, something to auto accept quests. So you might be trying to level very fast doing quests. It automates some of the gossip and the chat. I find it really helpful. Some people find it annoying. Definitely you're in a rush for the questing and this, that, and the other. Yeah, I recommend it. Little Wigs we've already spoken about. The next is something called My Slot that I started using. If you guys use something like PTR or the MDI, so there is a way you can use this to copy your characters over. So if I click on it here, again, this is very new to me, so I know very little about it. You can create characters. You've got the export string, so it gives you a string. If I click on like my Demon Hunter, for example, I copied this string and then I imported it onto the MDI, which is basically like a tournament server. That's an easy way of copying your character over. So basically I had to create my character on the tournament server, and then I imported this string and it copied all of my keybinds, my talents, everything on my action bars, absolutely everything you see on screen. So it's basically a carbon copy of your character, right? It copies absolutely everything. So yeah, if you're jumping onto the PTR or the tournament servers and you want an easy way of copying your characters across, this is probably the best way to do it. Moving on to one of my favorites for the Mythic Plus, we have MDT. You can bring this up by doing /MDT. It gives you the map of the dungeons itself. So if we take Knockout Offensive, for example, you can use this to plan out your route. The good thing about this is that you don't actually have to do any of the hard work yourself. You just download the add-on, you look up the content creators that have already done the routes yourself. So for me, I think I'm using Quasi and Dorky. Yeah, Quasi and Dorky. The routes change from time to time. You can obviously do it yourself, but this is very handy if you are looking to take Mythic Plus fairly seriously, or you just want to learn the percentages. So the percentages are a big thing. Again, if we take this one, for example, you usually want to get to 94%, I think in most cases, to be honest, for Knockout. You do the majority of the percentage here in the big open field. You move on at 94%. You go on to the last little bit where you've got number 19. It gives you the last. It takes you to 101 according to my route. And yeah, it's very good for Mythic Plus. I find it especially helpful for tanks. If you're like every other class, you pretty much just follow the tank anyway. But yeah, All right, next on the list is Omni CD, and I use this to track all of the like defensive cooldowns and DPS cooldowns of everyone in the party when I'm in a group. So when I'm in a group, I can see when a specific member of the party has popped their defensive cooldowns, they've popped their biggest cooldowns, and it's just very helpful because then it identifies like when someone has used a group cooldown, like a group defensive cooldown, and you've got yours and you're sitting on yours, and there's going to be another wave of damage. You know not to use yours now because it's been covered by another party member, and I don't know when the next wave comes along, you can then use yours, or you can look out for someone else's. And yeah, and obviously I have to show you the B-roll on the screen because I'm not in a group right now, so I can't show you mine. Next on the list is Opie, and I've had a lot of questions about this. It's basically this ring here that I've got all of my mounts and my consumables and whatnot. You can basically create as many rings as you want. So I was going to set one up for my mounts and I was going to set one up for consumables, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter for me. I've just put them all on one for now. But again, if you want to go and create many rings, that's absolutely possible. I think there's no limit on it, to be honest, but you bind it to a keybind of your choice. I've got mine to tilde because it's out of the way and I don't press it all the time, and it's just comfortable for me to do so. But yeah, I definitely recommend this one. It frees up a lot of keybinds. I had keybinds for like various different mounts for my potions and this, that, and the other. Like, it's just freed up so much space on the action bar as well. I definitely recommend Opie. The next one on the list is Pawn, and to those that don't know what Pawn is, if I highlight over a piece of gear, it's just the bit at the bottom that says like Vengeance 1% upgrade and stuff. So it helps me identify what items are a potential upgrade. I used to use this for dragonflight. I recommend not using it and to basically sim everything. It was great for certain classes in Shadowlands. It wasn't great for others. Different specs now require like different stats, and it doesn't do a good job of working that stuff out. So I don't recommend using it. I've just been lazy and I've kept it on. The next one is something that I've had a lot of questions about, and it is my plater profile. So for me personally, I didn't like the enemy nameplates themselves, so I had to find a solution. At the beginning of Shadowlands, I think I downloaded Quasis, and since then I've tweaked it. I've added bits and pieces, I've removed bits and pieces, and I've just kind of made it my own. Now, I don't just use plater for how it looks visually, it's actually very powerful. So in terms of like the plugins you can download for it, it does a variety of different things. So for example, we have the special interrupts. In all of the dungeons, that not every spell that goes off and is cast by an enemy is super harmful. When you get to the higher levels, all right, perhaps there's an argument for that case, but there's ones that clearly stick out and you need to definitely like interrupt them. And basically I've made my plater to indicate those special interrupts that you really need to take care of and prioritize. Along with that, the mobs are color coded, so some are highlighted in pink. Those are the ones that you need to interrupt. You've got ones highlighted in blue, which need to be stunned. And depending on your role, so if you're a healer or a DPS, they will highlight in red if you have aggro, and they will highlight in the default color, which I think is blue, if the tank has aggro. There's probably stuff that I've missed, but I'm not going to go over all of the details when it comes to plater. I could talk about it for a long time. If you want to use my profile, again, it will be linked in the Discord. Next on the list is a simple little add-on called Postal, and it basically helps me organize and send mail to my ults. That's pretty much all it is. Don't really need to go into detail for that. Next on the list, we have Radar.io. I basically just use this. It integrates with the Radar.io itself, and then in the bottom right, so the character panel itself, you've got all the information, like all of my progress, and to everyone else that's using it in game, when you highlight over them, you can see what rating they have, the progression, their mythic rating score, and whatnot. If we scroll further down, we've got rare scanner. So basically when I'm in the vicinity of a rare, it will pop up. Gonna quickly fly down and see if we can find one. It can get really annoying and spammy though. But look, now that we want one, there's none available. All right, there we go. So not a rare, but it's like the chests that you can go and pick up as well, which is presented by handy notes as well. Saved instances is the next one on the list, and it's one of my favorites, especially if you play a lot of characters. So this is saved instances. If I left click on it now, you can right click on it to go into the settings. But if you left click on it, you bring up the menu, and it basically just gives you a breakdown of all of your characters. You can choose what characters to select. You can have it so that if you've done something on that character for this week, it will be displayed. Obviously, it doesn't track everything if you don't want it to. There are loads of tick boxes. You can turn bits on and off, like whatever's relevant to you. This will display what keys your characters have. It displays, I think when you've done the key underneath, it will show you a drop-down list of which keys your character has done for the week. You've got reputation, or the currencies. I cannot recommend this enough. It's absolutely brilliant. I play a lot of characters and I absolutely love it. Shadowed unit frames. Now, I've been using LVY over the years. Dragonflight, I come away from it, but I couldn't come away from the plates itself, the user plates, the character plates. I really don't like the default, so I needed to find something. I believe Shadow unit frames is the same thing Elv uses. I might be wrong, but I got it looking pretty much the same as Elv. It was what I was used to, it's what I like, so yeah, there's not too much to say on that. Simulation craft is a big one. When you want to sim your character, you want to know the stats, like if a trinket is better for this, that and the other, like the DPS. So basically, when you have the add-on enabled, you can do /simc. It will bring up this text. You just control C to copy. You get rid of that. You go to raidbots, I think raidbots.com or IO, I can't remember. You do that, you paste it in, and it will give you a sim of your character. You can also go further into detail. You can select different bits of gear on the website. I don't particularly know how to use it very well. It goes very much into detail. You can get a massive breakdown of your character, and then you can sim to see which gear is better for you, basically. So if you are taking your character very seriously in terms of like DPS, I think it's much better for DPS. I'm not sure how it fares for tanks and healers. Obviously, tanks and healers want to do a bit more damage these days in the Mythic Plus scene, and definitely in the higher raids as well. But definitely in terms of DPS, I can't recommend this one enough, especially if you want to take it seriously. But if you're a filthy casual like me, then it doesn't matter so much. Right, weakauras. Weakauras. I will cover this in more detail after I've gone over all of the add-ons themselves, because it deserves its own little section. I used a lot of them. They're super helpful and I've had lots of questions. But basically, I've got like what looks like an action bar in the middle of the screen, and this is to track bits and pieces. So I've got like my immolation aura. You can see how long is left. It's given me my what is it called? My unbound chaos. So when I dash through the target, I'll do extra damage to them. It just tracks absolutely everything that is necessary to deal in damage, all of my defensives, this, that, and the other. Weakauras are super powerful. There's some controversy going on right now regarding weakauras. We don't know what's going to get removed because Blizzard doesn't want us to track absolutely everything, and they want us to play the game ourselves instead of being told what to do. I think we will be safe on this sort of thing, but yeah. Ah, there goes the rare scanner again, rudely interrupting my recordings. Next on the list, we have World Quest List. This one's a pretty good one. I really like this one. So I've used it for a little while. If I scroll out of, like, if I go into, say, Faldrassus, on the right here, it will display all of the quests in that area. So if I'm looking for I don't know, maybe an upgrade on an ult, perhaps, I can quickly scan over and I can prioritize which one I go to, sort of thing. So again, if you're like on an ult and like you've got the timer left, if one of them's running out, you can prioritize that. And yeah, I find this super helpful. I don't use it so much at the minute because I'm not doing so many quests, but yeah. LVY. Part of me wants to go back to it, but nah. Narcissus. This has been a fan favorite. I've had more questions about Narcissus than anything else. This is, of course, the lovely character panel that shows all of my gear. It wasn't until like a month into using it or 6 weeks into using it that I realized on the right here, you can actually display stuff like your Mythic Plus rating. You can go over sets. So you've got all your sets. And then the default, which is the primary, it goes over some of your primary spells. You've got your stats, this, that, and the other. Yeah, I can't recommend this one enough either. There's more to it. You can use it to take like fancy pictures of your character. You've got like a photo mode. You can go into your dressing room. You've got the achievements. I can't recommend this enough. It's absolutely brilliant. It makes the character look so much better, especially for the recordings. So yeah, this is Narcissus. I have got Astral Keys enabled, but I don't really use it. In in terms of like the keys, I think for the most part I used it when we formed the group. Like we had like a 5-man bunch of friends. We didn't know what keys we had. We'd do like ! keys, and to everyone else that had it, they would then spam the party chat with what key they had. But nowadays, honestly, if you've got details, I would do / keys. And it brings up a panel. So it will obviously bring up you and then your party members and display which keys you have. But it also brings up like your guildies as well. So I think I might actually get rid of it and just use the built-in details one, because it's so much better. It doesn't spam party chat. I definitely recommend it. And this is something that I didn't learn until recently, actually. / keys if you have details. It brings up this panel. Very helpful. And then we have the last one on the list that works with a weakauras. It's a weakaura sound pack by Causes. I believe if you have like the Causes weakauras enabled, you basically install this and it's a bunch of sounds. So for example, and we'll get into the weakauras in a minute, if you have stuff like a soak mechanic or something you need to spread for, or interrupt, or you need to dispel something from the target, it will basically say it out loud. So for me personally, because of my ADHD and stuff, I tend to tunnel, and I find this very helpful. So it will tell me, like for me on my Demon Hunter, there's something on, like, it's the Storm boss in Knockout Offensive where you need to consume something from him every now and then. It makes it super helpful. They just say consume, or consume this, or dispel, and straight away it's just like, okay, dispel that, cool. Makes the fight easier. Yeah, I definitely recommend this if you tunnel, but again, it works hand in hand with the weakaura, which is what we will cover in the next bit. All right, so the weakauras, I'm not going to cover absolutely every single one because there are a few like niche ones. For example, we have like the Razageth, 3 party members are targeted, one goes left, one goes right, the other one like goes in the middle and they move out the way. I'm not going to cover things like that, but I'll cover the main ones that I use and why I use them. So first of all, we have all of the class ones. I use all of Luxfos's because for me personally, they're the most appealing. They're easier on the eye. They just look more presentable than everyone else's. It's all personal preference. There are so many good ones out there, but for me personally, Luxfos does the best ones. They're updated fairly regularly. He has a nice website. He has absolutely every class available. In fact, I think he updated them for 10.07 a couple of days before it released. So yeah, props to Luxfos. Definitely recommend them. Again, he has every class available. I think I'll just kind of go down in order. So I have one that tracks trinkets. That kind of goes hand in hand with the class one. So I've got the class one for Demon Hunter, and then just above or just around there, I track the trinkets. So it will tell me when my Grief Torch and Puzzle Box are available. Grief Torch is a good one because obviously when a party member dies, the cooldown is reduced massively. So it basically gives me like, what, 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And then I can use it again, which is really, really good. The Dungeon Rio one is an interesting one, actually. So if I go to pre-made groups, I go to Dungeon and I go to find a group, it will display the Rio, so it picks up from the Raider.io add-on that I mentioned earlier. It will also display the class color, so you can see who's in what group, sort of thing. You can see the comp, right? So yeah, that's a pretty decent one to have. I definitely recommend it. Efficient stats is, it literally just displays my stats next to my action bar down the bottom, nothing fancy. I do like using a couple of them. There is one for the combat reses, which displays, I think, by the minimap. And I also have the global bloodlust that displays just above my character. Though I'm not sure the bloodlust one's actually working at the minute, to be honest. The combat res one, as I mentioned, this one's a great one. So it displays how many combat reses are available. It has like a number next to it. And it also displays the timer, so we know how long is left until a combat res is available. Definitely recommend something like this. Maybe closer to the character. I like having it out the way because it's not something I need to track constantly. So that one's kind of nice. Olaf Dragonflight is one that I don't really use now, but it's a very nice one. There are a couple of these ones that do exactly the same thing. This one's presented differently, so I prefer the looks of this one. But it basically just tracks the feast, the siege, your renown levels for each one of them. And also for this one especially, if you're in a specific area, it will track the rares. And the rares will also disappear if you've killed them for that day. So if you're rare farming, which I don't think a lot of people are really doing right now, it's definitely good for that as well. But yeah, To you guys doing the feast and the siege, perhaps on multiple characters, you've got the timers. Of course, you can track them on Wowhead's homepage themselves, but why do that if you can do it in game? This one's a big one for me. You've probably seen my mouse cursor outside of the weakauras panel itself. I often lose track of where my mouse is. Sometimes there's so much going on, it's very hard for me to keep track of. For now, I've just got a round circle. You can, of course, change the appearance. I kind of like, I think Quasi has a nice animation on his current one. I like the white circle. It works for me. I might actually make it a little bit bigger because I still lose it. You can, of course, change the color, the icon itself. But yeah, this is the one I use. All right, this one has been asked about quite a lot, and I renamed it to DBM and Bigwigs. I can't remember what the original name was, but basically if you're using either DBM or Bigwigs for the dungeons and raids, it will pull all the encounter information, all the timers, and it will present it in a nicer way, I think. So you can see how it's presented here. It goes down, you've got the timer, so you can see when raid abilities and stuff is about to happen. It just looks so much better to me. I've used it for quite a while. I've had a lot of people ask me about it. So this is what it is. Again, everything will be linked in the Discord if you want to download it for yourself. Again, I'm not going to cover the old stuff, but I think for now we're still using the thundering affix. I kind of like this one. It obviously displays the thundering on the character, mostly itself. So it'll tell you when you're safe. But yeah, there are so many thundering weakauras out there. This is the one personally that I like using. You can change bits and pieces. I think you can have it so that the party frame also does a little flashing effect. I don't use that myself, but yeah, this is the one I use. Next on the list for weakauras, we have the Mythic plus timer, and again, there are quite a bunch of these. This is the one I use, so it just basically removes the default. It alters it. It makes it look a bit more nice and presentable. Again, there are so many of these available as like personal preference. This is the one I used. I think I rearranged it a little bit, but yeah. I will mention this one, though I think it will be one that is taken out of weakauras itself, because it auto marks priority targets in dungeons, and I think that's what Blizzard want to come away from. So I do use it. It's not listed on my Discord. Let me know if you guys want me to add it to the list, but I think stuff like this is going to be taken out. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Right now, though, it is really helpful. So if you're unaware, it does make it easier. It marks them with like a square, a triangle, just so you know which ones you need to prioritize and kick and this, that, and the other. Just like the thundering, we have the quaking affix, which I'm pretty sure quaking's still going to be a thing for season 2 and future seasons. So this one's pretty helpful as well. We also have the interrupts from Quasi that I use. I think you can use Omni CD, but I personally prefer using the weakaura. I think if you use the Omni CD, you can also track stuns as well. But I mean, it's all personal preference at the end of the day. So again, these will be linked in the Discord as well. Another one that I like using, and I need to add it to the list, so please remind me if I forget, but it's the tank frontals. So if you've ever been part of, like, in a group and constantly seeing tanks say frontals, it's basically an indicator to say, like, don't stand in front. Like, melee DPS and everyone else, don't stand in front because you're going to get frontaled. It's just a nice warning for the rest of the group. Of course, I use all of the raids and the dungeon stuff to present a nice weakaura. So if we like click on the Shadowlands dungeons, for example, I've of course got the dragonflight ones, but I'm just using this as an example. You've got all the different bits and pieces to move out of, kill the ads, spread, this, that, and the other. There's many of those, but if I just mention the Wise Mari corrupted one for the Jade Serpent. So I've mentioned this before. The white lines is basically when the ability is about to happen. If it's not in the white lines, that's when you know you're safe, because the tide comes up and then you're going to take a lot of damage. So you need to be standing on the platform for that. And I think this one is the last one on the list. But this one's an interesting one because I've had a few people say, like, you don't have the healer's mana presented on screen. You should really do something about that. And I do, you just miss it. So I have this add-on. So for Mythic Plus, obviously it will only present the one healer. I'm not sure why it's presenting my Havoc Demon Hunter as a Resto Shaman, but okay. This is super helpful. You can turn on and off bits and pieces like the name if you don't want the name to be on there. I think I've left it on there by default, but it shows you who the healer is. It shows you the percentage of mana, so you know, as specifically like tanks, right? It's very important that you know how much mana your healer has and whatnot, so you know if you need to chill, stop, continue and whatnot. Not only that, but when your healer is drinking mana, it will present a sound, a crunching sound, so you'll clearly know what it is. It kind of threw me off the first couple of times when I heard it. It was like, what the hell is that? But yeah, now I can clearly identify like what it is, and I know that, oh, okay, the healer is currently drinking, like, so I know to scan over and check. It's a reminder. They might be low, they might just be replenishing that little bit more. Yeah, and as you can see here by the example, it also displays when or if the healer is offline, and recently we've had one of those. I think that's pretty much it in terms of weak auras. If I've forgotten one, please let me know in the comments below. If you guys have any questions at all, I'll do my best to answer them, which leads me to the last bit, and that is all of the profiles I use. So of course we have the default Blizzard UI, which I will have a profile link in the Discord. Along with that, we have the Shadowed Unit Frames profile, Omni CD profile, Details profile, and of course my Plater profile. So yeah, I think I've covered it all, right? That's everything. Again, if I've missed anything, let me know in the comments below. I will do my best to reply to every comment, every question. If you've enjoyed the video, a like would be much appreciated. If there's anything about the UI that you dislike at all, let me know in the comments below. If you want to join me for some Keystones, you can catch me live over on Twitch. A link to that and all of my other socials can be found down below. But that's me done. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.